And here we are playing against Zirix, and we have a pretty minion-heavy hand that wants us to have a bunch of spells. So we're going to have to mulligan in trying to find some of those spells, and we throw back the Healing Mystic because it really doesn't combo with what we have in our hand, and it's more of a late game heal that we can weave in when we're getting kind of low on health. So our opponent plays a Shiro, so they're probably going for a more swarm type of deck, which this deck does have a little bit of trouble with because the Twin Strikes only hits 2 minions. So we're going to try to lead off with the Twin Strikes here. We'd like to have played the Adjudicator, but there wasn't a good way for us to play the Adjudicator and Twin Strikes and be able to attack. We want to clear the board. And this is protected from the enemy general in this positioning, so it's not a huge deal that it's just stuck on a 2-1 right now. And Blazehound, unfortunately, doesn't draw us a card because our hand is too full already, because the Twin Strikes does draw us a card. So Pyromancer is pretty threatening, so we're likely going to want to finish or kill that off. And I think the way we want to do it is by playing the Lantern Fox and inner focusing, which will allow us to get our Chakri avatar up to enough of a attack total to kill off the Blazehound. And then we'll just lay down the Hotseeker. So we're just trying to stall out the game. Next turn we're going to look to try to probably Adjudicator and reduce all of these spells. We have 4 spells, so this will generate 4 mana worth of acceleration for us, which is really nice. Lantern Fox Phoenix Fire gets wasted, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Slow this down a little bit. And our opponent just develops onto the board. So we're going to lay down the Adjudicator. We don't need it in the fight. With the 3-1, you want to be able to pick and choose when it's in the fight. So you place it a little further back, and you don't have to deal with it being just knocked off. And after I position it, I realize that I'm going to want to move forward and kill this Shroud, and I leave it vulnerable. So I probably wanted to position it either further up here or play it after I played the Phoenix Fire, because I didn't actually need the reduction on that Phoenix Fire, and I could have played it somewhere out here. So that was a mistake that I made. My opponent is just going to Shroud my Heartseeker, which is fine. We don't play a deck that's based around our Heartseekers. Some Reaver decks can take pretty good advantage of them with some of the buff cards, especially Killing Edge, but we don't really aim to do that, so our Reavers are just 1-1 ranged, so they're just something to deal with, but you'll get a lot of opponents who overvalue them because they're used to playing against regular Reaver decks, and we just take advantage of that. The people aren't used to playing against a deck that is based around just dropping large Cone of Horns. So, in this situation, we're just trying to figure out how we can set up the next turn for the Cone of Horns. We want to have a decent minion count, and we also want to just have the enemy board as clear as possible. So what we're going to do is play the 4 Winds, and play the Chakri, and then Phoenix Fire down the Sojourner, and this sets us up nicely for the next turn. We do basically play a Chakri onto the board, which will cost us a Gorehorn, but we're not really concerned with that because a Chakri will get up to a 3-4 anyways and be a pretty powerful minion, and having something on the board allows us to clear the board before we have to lay down all our Gorehorns. So I think this is a more prudent way to set up. So something like an Amaria Healer could be a little bit of an issue. We'd probably have to just trade off our minions and then see where we end up after the Cone. We have the Healing Mystic, which is a great minion to swap because we don't really want it at this point in the game. Our life total is not too bad. 19 is not too low. And with the Magi, we can gain an extra life as well, so we're at effective 20. Nimbus is something that we are not overly well equipped to deal with, especially with Cosmic Flesh. I'm actually remembering this game now. This basically, it makes it a 4/11 provoke, and when it takes damage, it summons an obelisk. So, we don't have anything to deal with that outside of Bear Seal. So, fortunately, the Cone of Thorns could help us draw further towards Bear Seal, but I think we just need to play it onto the board because the one weakness of Nimbus is that it's rather slow. So by just playing as many cones as we can, as many Gorehorns as we can, we overwhelm our opponent's ability to kill them off because they can kill one minion a turn with the Nimbus because of its size, but it can't do much more than that. So if we just slam down as many as we can, we might be in a position to not have to kill off this Nimbus. And that's why we're kind of barricading this. We'd like to allow some of these to attack and backstab. We would try to kill this off if we can, because we probably can't win the game without getting rid of this, because having a giant provoke is difficult to lethal an opponent through. But we want to ignore it for now because we don't have good trades. And you don't need to make attacks if you don't have good trades, especially against a minion that's as slow as Nimbus. We have the second cone, which we could use as just a three card draw, just a very expensive Heaven's Eclipse. But I'm not sure if that's the direction we decide to go. Now, my opponent decides to run down and give this flying and make it a 4/16 taunt. Provoke. Excuse, I keep saying taunt, I apologize. Excuse me. And this means that it's going to be even more difficult to kill, and we can't backstab it. Now, our opponent also plays this as a provoke, so we decided to keep the cone because I'm thinking that we may need to eventually trade it in for card draw. And it might have been better to play it here instead of just playing the Twin Strikes, which does draw us a card, but wasn't overly effective. So right here, we're just going to try to develop a Heartseeker, because Heartseeker is one of the things that can still attack. So we're able to get a few attacks off with Gorehorns. So since we think we're going to need to just whittle our opponent down, getting in any number of attacks without this provoke interfering is good for us. And we want to hit the obelisk with our general because these destroy any minion that deal damage to it, so it's mostly safe to kill it off with our general. And spells, I'd imagine. So remember that this Nimbus can fly anywhere, so we're trying to create a little box around our minions so that it's not easy for our opponent to fly into the middle of all of them. They would have to, if they flew over here or here, if they could kill off this with their general, they could fly in, but they take 4 damage and be in range of some things that they probably don't want to be in range of. So they're able to kill off that front one. So we do still have some spaces we could get to, but pretty much everything, every square around the general is going to be covered by this provoke. So we're just going to have to rely on the Heartseeker and maybe any spells to finish off 7 health opponent. So they play a second wish, which means that they can just beat on our general, or they can just kill basically any one of our minions. Now, if they hit our general, they don't get an obelisk because they're not actually taking damage, which is interesting interaction. And they play a second wish on the Pyromancer, which means we can't just kill it off with our Heartseeker. So we're going to trade in the Gorehorns because I don't think Gorehorns help us, and we finally draw that Bear Seal, and that allows us just to finish up the game. So digging for that Bear Seal just was pretty much our only answer to this giant provoke minion, which is not something you're going to see very often, but it was certainly difficult to deal with for this deck because we don't play as many spells or spell combos as in regular Songhai. So those were some interesting games. This deck was a lot of fun. it was a lot more fun when it worked than when it didn't, and it was a little bit hard to use because you fall behind on board a little bit because you're a little bit more slanted towards the late game when you play the Koan, but I had a lot of fun, and if you have the cards, it's worth giving it a try. It's actually not too high of a spirit deck, given that it's based around a legendary. I think it's about 6,000 spirit. So, give it a try and tell me what you think. Thanks, guys.